Hi, welcome to the player movement video. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to actually do the network player movement. We're going to start by building a first-person character controller. In that way that we're going to be first-person perspective and we're going to be able to look around, move, and then we're going to look at the component that Unity give us to kind of make this behavior networked. So let's get started. So here, we're gonna start with just some changes to the scene that I've made. So I removed the camera because it's gonna be on the player. We're gonna do a first-person camera. So I removed the camera, made sure the floor is at 0, 0. I also made a prefab of these ones, and then I fixed it in every scene. So in every scene, I removed the camera, checked that the floor is at 0, 0, and add those objects. That's gonna make it so that in the map selection, we can actually spawn in any map. Now, next step, we're going to install some package. So as I said, it's going to be, the camera is going to be on the player because we're going for a first-person character. So what we want to do is we want to add some package that are going to make that easier. So first that I want is Cinemachine. So we're going to go here and install Cinemachine. Now that this is done, we're going to go install another package, which is the input system. So here, input system. So you're going to install it, and it's going to ask you to restart your project. So go ahead and restart your project. All right, now that it's restarted, we're going to go into the project settings right here. We're going to go into the input manager. Yeah, everything here seems fine. So it's using the new input system now. Now, the things you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go back to some places where you have an event system, and make sure that use also the new input system. So that goes for the not the init scene, the main menu, which has an event system. You're gonna want to replace with the new input system and save, and then in the lobby, same here and here. So now if I go in my init scene, it shouldn't break anything. So let's start it. We're gonna go in here. I can still click the button. I can go to that map that I set up now. There's no camera, so I'm gonna start. So I'm gonna put it in here, but you can see me spawn. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're gonna set up the new input. So let's create a folder, input. We're going to create a new input action. Now it's going to be at the bottom here, input action. We're going to call it player control. So there's many ways to set up controls in the new input system. This is the way I prefer it. I prefer to just check myself still like the old input, like if something happened, this update loop, this frame. So let's go in here. This is the player control. We're going to do a move, and we're gonna do a look. So let's go into move. The move has no binding right now, but we're just gonna set that up to be a pass-through here and a vector too, because that's how movement works. And for the binding, we're gonna want to go. In fact, I'm gonna delete that one, and we're gonna add up, down, left, right composite. So that's gonna be a WASD. So up is gonna be W, down is gonna be the S, left we got the A, and right we got the D. Okay, cool. And so if you want to support joystick, you'd be able to add here something and do like a gamepad and then the left stick. That's gonna give you also a vector 2. Now for the look part, what we want to do is it's pretty much the same. So it's a pass-through. It's also a vector 2. And then what you want to do is you want to, you know what? Let's put it right here. The right stick, or we want to add another binding that we're going to put here, and it's going to be the mouse delta here. So that's going to be for us to get how much the player move the mouse that frame. Okay, so that's it for the player input. The only thing left to do is we want to save asset here. And then we want to go in on the asset and we want to generate the C# class. Now you can put it wherever you want. I usually put it with the rest of my script in the game here. Yeah, I'll save it right there, player control, and then apply. So that's going to generate a class that we're going to be able to reference in our C# script to kind of listen to the player input. Okay, so now that it's done, we're going to go ahead and do some changes on our player prefab so that it now has a camera. So let's open a prefab. So one thing I noticed right now is the player prefab is facing this, but my visor is kind of this way. The capsule is also facing that, so I'm gonna fix that. Let's go and place the visor like somewhere like here. We're gonna put the scale of this and make it something like this, so that way we have a kind of a real vision of like where the player's looking. Okay, let's go. So that looks fine for me. That little Among Us type character. Okay, so we have that. Now what I wanted to add to was another game object called camera socket, because we're gonna actually add the Cinemachine camera here. So let's go here, Cinemachine, a virtual camera, and we're gonna have to add a normal camera because in the prefab mode he doesn't add it normally. So here on the camera you're gonna want to add a Cinemachine brain. There you go. So that makes it so that camera is controlled by the Cinemachine camera. So that's the basic setup that we're going for. For now, it's going to be enough, but at some point we can play with those settings to make it feel a little bit better. Let's just change the position of the camera, because right now it's not at all doing what we want it to do. So we're going to want to place that 0 with a rotation of 0, 0. And we're going to take the camera socket, it's important, and put it up here. So let's try to place it. I'm going to remove this to make sure that I place it correctly. We want to put it like in front of the visor. Because we could also, like in something I did with my prototype, I just remove the visor if you're local, but that's going to be simpler for us right now in this tutorial. So there we go. We now have a player prefab. So let's test this really quick. If I go into my init scene, I'm going to save this. It's already like synced with the network manager because it's our player prefab that we set on the network manager. And if I go in here, I hit the host, I hit any map really, I should now see it from the perspective of my character. So all right, player prefab is ready. So we're going to go into asset script game, and we're going to, so we have our player control script, but we're going to create a player controller script. So player controller script. There we go. And we're going to open this in Writer. Now in Writer here, we're going to start and have some variable here that we're going to set. So first, we're going to go ahead and set some speed variable that's going to let us like set it in the editor. If you don't know the serialized field attribute, this is basically a way for you to expose a private variable to the editor, but since it's private, it's still not going to be accessible for the other classes. So this is something I usually use. Haven't used it in this project yet, so I'm introducing you to it because I'm going to use it going forward. So private float. We also want a turn speed. So this is going to be how quick we turn. And I want another one, which is going to be the rotation, min and max. So when you look up and when you look down, you don't want a camera to kind of roll past a certain angle. So we're going to make that parameter exposed so that we can change it. Usually it's going to be like 90 and minus 90, but you know what? Just want to make sure. And one thing we're going to need for us in terms of movement, we're going to need the transform of the camera. Whoops. So we're going to do cam transform. So those variables are going to help us like determine which direction the player is facing, which camera, where, the forward of the camera, so that we can move towards the forward of the camera. and rotate the player accordingly too. Oops, sorry, that was a mess. Now what we're gonna need also is we're gonna need a character controller. So let's put it here. For those of you who don't know what a character controller is, it's a basic controller that exposes a method, simple move and move, and it just moves the character for you, and it takes care of things like slope, steps, and some other stuff. The only thing that you're gonna need to implement yourself is if you want to actually like jump or use gravity. Another thing I'm gonna put in here is the require component. Require component means that when you add that script to a game object in the scene, that game object needs to have a certain component that we're gonna put here. If it doesn't, then it's gonna be automatically added. So we want a character controller. And that's kind of a safe check, so that on start we can just do get component and then character controller. That's just like, it allows us to not have like a null to null check in and stuff, because we know we need it. So let's just put it as a required component. Okay, we're gonna need actually the player controls. So player control here, player control. So this is basic. We're just gonna do player control equals new player control, and then we're gonna enable them. Enable, there we go. So that's pretty straightforward. And the other thing we're gonna want to do, since we're gonna be first person here, let's do it right now, is put the lock state to lock, so that the cursor is locked to the middle of the screen. So now one other variable we're gonna need here is a float, and it's the actual camera angle. The camera angle, we're going to calculate it based on the forward of the player. So to see like, are you like 45 degree up, looking 45 degree up, down. This is what we're going to need that for to clamp the rotation and not allow the player to go past the whatever was in min max rotation. Okay, this is pretty cool. Now, what we one other thing we're gonna need, and it's a pretty weird thing, but when you're using Cinemachine, it's a great feature and also not so much a great feature, which is whenever you add a camera to the scene, the priority automatically switched that camera. So now you can imagine that I'm the host, starting a game, and then another player is spawning, and suddenly, boom, I'm seeing things from his perspective. That can't be something good, and it needs to not happen. So let's start introducing some little networking. So whenever something is network, and we're gonna need to fix some things on the prefab for that, but you want to put it network behavior. So that allows you to have access to a couple other methods. You can read it in here. There's going to be a couple one where we're going to be interested. Personally, I think that's a pretty messy, and it's a little bit hard to read. But if you come here, you know, it gives you access to the network manager by a variable, something like is local player, is owner, is server, is client, is host, is owned by server, a lot of things, you know. And it's gonna give you also like things like the network object ID and some basic function that you can override. And one of them is on network spawn. Okay, so we don't need to call the base one. So here, what we actually want to do is we want to get the Cinemachine virtual camera. So this method is going to be called whenever the network manager spawns you in the game. So at this point, we're going to do, we're going to get in on the cam transform, and we're going to do, give me the game object and get component, the Cinemachine virtual camera. Okay. And now we're going to do if and is owner, meaning this is me in the scene. This is my object running the unnetwork spawn. Then I want to set my priority higher. So priority equals 1. And then else, if it's not me, then I just want to put the priority to 0. So that way on network start, we're gonna keep our priority and not the one that was added, and the one that was added was gonna be put for that. We could want to see things from the other camera, like if you're doing like a death cam or something like that, like in Call of Duty or something like kill cam. You could want to use this system to kind of say, oh, if I died, and switch my priority to the priority of the other player, or the person that killed me switch his priority to 1 so that the Cine Machine switch you to that camera. Okay, but for now we want to keep our own camera. Okay, so we are now ready to start doing the controls. All right, so now we're gonna start to implement some control. So since this is something that particular to multiplayer, but since you're gonna have like multiple of these player controller in the scene, because there's multiple player in the game, you're gonna want to make sure that we only listen if we are the local player, because there's no point otherwise. You're not moving the other player, you're moving yourself, and is local is something that network behavior give us. So what we're gonna do is if player control the player that move that is in progress, which means that the player is actively trying to move, we're going to store the vector to movement, and we're going to read it. So player control dot player dot move dot read value, and we set it as a vector 2, so we're going to read it as vector 2. We're going to do vector 3 to get the movement, as we said, like from the perspective of where the camera is facing. So let's go here with movement input, and then movement is equal to, and this is a classic way to do this. So movement input dot x time the transform of the camera. So the x is actually if you want to move right and left, it's the x-axis. So we're going to multiply that by the right of the camera to make sure that this goes in the right direction. And we add to it whatever forward movement we want to do. So movement input dot y, which is represent the front back movement, that we're going to multiply by the cam transform dot forward. Oops, cam transform dot forward. And here we go. Since we don't want the player to be able to kind of, because with the camera you can look up, and then if you do W, then you're going to move forward to the camera, but then you're going to move up, and we don't want that. So for now, we're going to put the Y to 0. At some point, we're going to implement just gravity. That's what's going to fix us, and then that's beauty of character controller. We can just ask him to move. So we're going to ask him to move from the movement input. Not the movement input, the movement, and we're gonna do time speed and time dot delta time, so that it's smooth. Okay, so that's everything we need to do for the actual movement WASD. Now let's do the rotation. So we're gonna do the if player control dot player dot look dot in progress, like this, then what we want to do is we're going to store same thing, the look input. It's equal to player control dot player dot look dot read value, same thing, it's a vector 2. And then what we want to do is first we want to, because we have two things to do, right? We want to rotate the player and then rotate the camera too. So we're going to go with transform dot rotate around at our position. The transform dot up to have our own up vector. And how much? It's going to be look input dot X, because this is the input for the player rotation. The Y is going to be for the camera. So that turn speed, that time dot delta time. There we go. And then we're gonna do here rotate camera method, which is gonna take the look input dot y. Okay, so I'm gonna generate that method here. Let's create the method. There we go, it's here. And here, what we actually want to do is we first want to calculate the camera angle with the forward vector. So what's the difference between right now our forward vector and where our camera's looking? So that way it's going to give us an indication of like, if we add the current rotation, are we going to go past the limit we set? So we're going to do vector 3 dot signed angle. We do our transform dot forward because we just rotated the player, and we want to know the difference with that and the cam transform dot forward. So if the player is looking 45 degree up, we're gonna get the angle 45 degree, and if it's looking down, then it's gonna be I think it's the opposite. If you're looking up, it's negative. If it's looking down, it's positive. And then we're gonna get around which angle we want to calculate. It's the right angle. Okay, so now we know the camera angle, so we're gonna calculate how much we should rotate. So camera rotation amount equals to look input y times turn speed time the delta time. So this is the amount of rotation we would apply to the camera if it's not past the limit that we have. So what we want to do now is we're going to calculate how much is left. So let's go new camera angle equals the camera angles minus the camera rotation amount. Okay, so now we just want to make sure that this new rotation would be inside our the setup we did, the vector we set for that. So is new camera angle smaller or equal to min max rotation dot x, and new camera angle is greater or equal to min rotation dot y. If it is, then we move the camera. So cam transform dot rotate around. This time it's the cam position. Cam transform dot position. We want the cam, and we want the cam transform dot right. That's the axis we're going to rotate around, and then we just go minus look input y times turn speed times delta time. There we go. I put a minus in here because to me it just feel like I inverse my camera rotation. But if you feel like you want to do this like differently, then we definitely you can definitely just remove that that y here. Okay, so we should be all right. I have a little error here. Did I not put it? Yeah, I did not put it as a vector 2. So there you go. It's a vector 2. And cool. That's it. That's it for the basic control. We can now check that in Unity. Before we go back to Unity, I just did a small mistake. Here, it should not be the movement input that we put to 0. It should be the movement. To make sure that the movement that was calculated, make sure that we don't like elevate on the y-axis. Okay, now let's really go back to Unity. Now in Unity here, go on the Play Prefab. In here, you're going to have the player controller script. It's going to add automatically the character controller, remember, because of a required component. And make sure you have also a network object. On a player controller, you want to set a speed and a turn speed. Mine are pretty low because my sensitivity are pretty high. Sorry, because my sensitivity is pretty low. And min max rotation X 90 minus 90. And for the cam rotation, you want to take the CM VCam. So make sure you adjust speed and turn speed to something that feels right in with your mouse sensitivity. But it should be fine. So now let's go in the init scene and start from there. It's gonna load. You can do this in like any map since we fixed that. I like purple, so I'm gonna go into purple. And here we go. We have a basic actor. I'm not falling, but I can, if I look up and I try to go forward, I'm still on the ground, so that's perfect. I cannot like move back into the ground either. I'm still always at the level of the ground. So that's what we wanted. All right, so now I've launched a game I did a build and launch a game. So let's launch. We're gonna see like if we can see both player move. So let's host here, let's join here. There we go. And we're gonna join. Okay, so we can see here we join and here we join. Let's ready up, ready. Let's go back here. So some of you mentioned it's long. Sometimes it can take up to 6 seconds because that's the minimum requirement to. It's the maximum you can ping Unity for a lobby update. So we're gonna start this. I'm gonna move, and then we're gonna go here. And there we go. This person can move, but immediately you see that. Okay, I see where the host was, but I can't see myself move. And if you go from the host perspective, is the same thing. You just don't see the movement of the other player, and this is normal. So what's happening here is that we are not syncing the transform. We're just saying, okay, yeah, if you're local, then just move. Now there's a component that you can add to your player prefab to have that automatically synced. It's called the NetworkTransform. There you go, NetworkTransform. Let's add it here. And now you're gonna see a new different behavior. All right, so launch another build here. Let's host and join like usual. Let's go, we can join. Okay, yeah, it takes the time. And then we're gonna be able to ready up, ready here. Good. This one's gonna get the update and we can start. So there we go. We're gonna go here. Okay. But now what happens is, woohoo! When the hosts move, here I see it. But when this one moves, I do not see it. And a strange behavior, just the camera can rotate. So here's what's happening in the beauty of multiplayer. The network behavior, the NetworkTransform component that they have in the project is server authoritative. It means that you have to tell the server that you want to move, the server moves you, and then it's sync to your NetworkTransform component. So you absolutely need to tell the server that you moved, and he's gonna move you on the server, and then you're gonna get the update on the client. So we're not gonna do this in this video, but we're gonna do this in the next video. And there it is for our network player movement video. In the next video, we're going to look into making sure that each of the client and the host see the other person movement and is all replicated. If you'd like, we just launched a Discord server. So the link is in the banner on the channel or in the comments below. If you need help, this is a way better place for me to help you guys and also just to meet the rest of the community. I'm interested to see what you guys are working on. Are you just following the video along or are you working on your own project on the side? Let me know. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.